it. That must have been a bot. Let's see if there's a... Oh, Luke's here. There we go. Let me see. How do I add this thing? Let's see how slow my StreamYard is getting. Here we go. Luke, how's it going? How are things? What are you up to? I am well. I am just in the house today, messing around, doing feck all. My missus' back is gone again, so I had a late night. My head's not all there today, as ever. Such as fucking capitalism. You're unemployed during the... Yeah, I'm about to be reasonably unemployed soon enough, I think. I do like computer programming work on the big block of work that I was working on for like a year and a half. That's kind of got to the stage now where they don't have any money to pay me to do any more, essentially. Pay me till after Christmas. So hopefully that'll allow me to put a bit of energy, more directed, well-placed energy into the podcast and the network, and we can get these videos produced that I keep on talking about. Where are you based, Luke? Are you you're in America, I think, are you? Do we have anybody else here? We've got somebody else here as well. Anybody else? Say hello in the chat. And yeah. So coronavirus has let us down yet again. It had Boris in its grasp. It had Trump in its grasp, and it let them go. To quote Shakespeare, it's like, if I could feed fat that ancient grudge I bear upon him. What was it? What did Shylock say? If I could catch him once upon the hip, I would feed fat that ancient grudge I bear upon him. Yeah. So coronavirus had him by the hip and they let them go. Robert, how's it going, Robert? How's it going? How are you? So we have a couple of people in the house now. We got 5 going. We got Christopher here as well. Yo, Christopher. Christopher, you're in Ireland, aren't you? I think you're in Ireland. You're the one who was saying about the etymology of the word bloke is like a mixture of either Irish traveller or Roma traveller. That was one from the that was a word that came up surprisingly in the translation of the Brumaire. Bloke seems such a modern word. I didn't think it would be around 150 years. Luke asks, is the unemployment stuff as chaotic where you are as in America? I'm not a great judge of it, like, to be honest with you, because I kind of work from home. So I don't leave the house. I go to my local shops and I'm not working, like, I'm not going to the service industry. I don't really, I go to the local chipper. I don't eat out in restaurants now. I haven't since, for a good while now. I don't go outside much of the local high street, which is very sad. But maybe it'll change now. I just bought a car, my first ever car, which filled me with deep dread when I bought it last week. So it genuinely did. But this week, so maybe going forward, I'll be seeing more effects. But like, I haven't been able to judge it. Like, since COVID, I haven't been into the center of London. I haven't been to the big shopping districts. I haven't been to the like kind of corporate areas of London. So I can only judge from my high street. And I think it's knocked off some local shops, but the furlough is here. So when you don't have the furlough in America, like, I don't know how heavily furloughed it is here because I'm not on that scheme, but like, I think it's not as good as it was at the start, but like, so I think things are kind of holding together a bit here, but unemployment is going up. I think unemployment is ticking up, but it's not like the ungodly shit show that America is. Like, they're playing this game. Democrats are playing this game, like, let's not allow Trump get a stimulus through for the next month, or, well, Trump will be president until, like, I think January, isn't it? So until January, I think, is what they're saying. So, like, they're just going to basically let the whole country go to shit for, like, their political aims, which seems to me terribly short-sighted. Like, yeah, what is to stop, like, in America? Can anybody tell me in the American Constitution, like, is there a limit to the amount of times you can run as president? Like, could Trump do like a Putin and, like, lose this one, come back in 4 years, run again, and then do like 3 or 4 terms? I know he'd be in his 90s, but who fucking knows? He's strong as an ox. This guy, strong as an ox. Yeah, like, it seems like, yeah, American politics is just, the contradictions, like the institutional structures that have been built up around the kind of, offshoring production off there, the Democratic move to the center, and the Republican move to explicitly kind of racist culture war type kind of politics, how they position themselves. It's leading to this situation where, like, common, like, kind of even common sense systemic decency, common sense decency, like, by even the Democrats, and systemic awareness of the risks that the political strategies are causing in this scenario, as opposed to 1990, like, are pretty staggering. I'm quite surprised by that move. They could get, I don't know. It's hard to believe. It's not hard to believe, but it's still, like, I think it shows quite a lot of a lack of self-awareness on the part of the Democrats. Like, they have their policies of screwing Bernie, the Obama, like, charade. All of these things have really, really helped to erode, like, any type of feeling that the workers would have had. I think that the Democrats would have their back, that I think they would have had 50 years ago, certainly 80 years ago. So that's gone I think that's pretty much gone for young people. Like, I think the older people, they lap up Obama and all that, but I wonder how many young people lap up Obama the same way. I think a diminished number, certainly. Okay. You can only be president twice. Yeah. He's clearly fucked up by COVID and steroids. Yeah, if it can happen, it will happen. That's a good rule of thumb. If it can happen, it will happen. 2020 has taught us that. Roosevelt served 3 terms. They put something in. Yeah, constitutional amendment. That's true. Okay, so I prepared a few graphs last live stream. I did some stuff on the empirical evidence stuff to back the labor theory of value, or a misunderstanding of it. So basically, this is the work by Cockshott. It's by Shaikh initially, Anwar Shaikh. So this is the idea that they would look at the national income accounts and be able to show that prices are correlated with values. Okay, that was their big welcome to Steel Toe. So that was their big empirical research project. So what they did is they looked at the national income accounts, and they looked at all the prices and they looked at all the values and they did some statistical analysis to see whether they correlated. And lo and behold, they correlated with like 97% accuracy. Now, any statistician would look at a 97% correlation and go, wait a second here, in something as noisy as a system like the economy. So last week we dealt with one of the major critiques. I'll give a quick run through it again for people. We have like what did I do? I did a sector here. Like, so the general idea was like that in these national income accounts that they break down these stats by sector. So they have like the auto sector, the agribusiness sector, they have the information sector, and they have like, I don't know how many sectors, 20 something, or I think they divide it up into. And they don't show you the individual level, each firm spending. They have aggregated the data. So they look at, here's all the prices of the stuff that the output of this sector got. Here's all their labor inputs and their cost inputs aggregated. Okay, so one of the problems would be that if you look at these, this graph here, I'll have to share the screen. I forgot to share the screen. That would be pretty bad if I didn't share the screen. Okay, let me add it there. Okay, so one of them is like that. If you look here, we have the corn sector, which I've broken up into these three fellas here: the farmers, the wholesalers, and say the cornflake factory. Now, at the entire level, if you look at say the corn sector, there's 300 constant capital, 300 variable capital, and 300 surplus value, and adds up to 90. Okay, now so you're adding up all the prices and all the costs there, so it comes to 90. But if we look at each individual operation, so say like a farmer's, they have less machinery than say a factory would have. So maybe they only spend 20 grand on machinery and 200 grand on 180 grand on labor. Okay, so their surplus, if it's a 100% rate of exploitation, so for every hour you work, so if you work 8 hours in a day, 4 hours goes to your wages and 4 hours goes to the boss. So we have the rate of surplus value here would be 180. So for that one, for this guy, it's going to be 100. And for cornflake factory, where they only have a few fellas working there, or ladies, they have only a tiny little bit of surplus generated because there's not many staff working there. But according to Marx, the prices should tend towards the prices of production. Okay, so that means that they should get an average amount of profit. Okay, let's have a look here. So we'll see here that in this graph here, we see corn farmers. This is the split up between constant and variable, constant blue, variable. So in the farmers here, they've got loads of labor, very little machinery. Loads of here, the same amount of machinery as labor for the wholesalers, and for the factory, loads of machinery, feck all workers. Okay, so we add up the constant and variable capital, they're the same. Okay, now, but when we look at what would be the surplus, okay, so the total value generated by the corn farmers, you see, is 380. But when they only take an average rate of profit, they get 300 for the price of their output. It's spot on the average for the wholesaler. And for the cornflake factory, they only produce 220 value, but their price, they get 300. So all these boys here are getting the same thing. They're getting the same price. Okay, so look what happens when we sum these up. In the corn sector, we have prices and values look like they're correlated. Okay, when you add them all up. But when you look at them individually, they're all over the shop. Instead of this being 220 a price, they're getting 300. Instead of this one being 380, they're getting 300. So we can see that just alone, the concept of aggregation will make, this is like a kind of a thing we should think about, is like any sector in the economy typically will have components, firms in that sector that are heavily capital intensive and others that are not capital intensive. That'll be the tendency. You'll have a distribution within a sector that may be maybe exactly like the overall distribution, maybe skewed slightly, but you will still have a distribution. So the effect of summing these things together, you see, just the affecting of summing, regardless of just a random sector, you sum up a load of firms, it will have the tendency to basically mash away the difference between prices and values. So that's a massive flaw with the statistical work that they've done. Now, what would you need? So let's get on to the second major flaw, which is, I think, more damning. Okay, so that's pretty goddamn damning stuff there. Okay, but this one is incredibly damning. So I've made up a couple of little graphs here. Okay, sorry, that should be here now. Okay, now let's have a look here. So here we have like a few sectors here again, and I've just done these up randomly. So this here we have there. Let me increase the size of. Can you increase the size of a graph? That's interesting. Chart area. Okay, I can. Let's try it good and big like that so people can see. Okay, so here we have just a few sectors, right? So we have steel sector, corn sector, Rolex sector, coat sector. So for steel, corn, Rolex, and clothes. Okay. Now you'll see there's a difference between the so blue is the price and red is the value. Okay. So I've just done up a few here that they have the sector as a whole, I think, has exactly, let me move this guy. The sector as a whole okay, so we've got 4 sectors here. Now let's have a look at one of these sectors. Okay, the steel sector. Okay, let's have a go and have a look at the steel sector. Let me get it here. Okay. Now, that's a bit big. Let me get it. Sorry, this is a bit amateurish. Forgive me. Okay. Okay. So, we have here. This is the price of our steel output, and this is the value of our steel output. So we can see there's a big difference between the value and the price here. Okay. Now, but what happens when we break down what the price is? So you can imagine if you're a steel factory or whatever, you have your constant capital, which is your yellow. You have your variable capital, which is your labor costs. And when you sell it, this is our average profit. So this is our price. So we're going to assume, right, that everybody's getting the average rate of profit. Okay. Like Marx says, that's the tendency. Now, here's the actual value. Let's break down the value. So we've broken down, this is the blue one broken down. And this column here is the red one broken down. So this is the blue is the price and red is the value. So we've broken down the price. Now let's break down the value. Here we have, again, constant capital, again, variable capital, and here's our surplus labor. Okay. So now, can anybody see anything in common between these two things here? All right. Right. So this one here represents the blue and this one here represents the red. Now, if you look, of course, both of them have the same, both of them contain constant capital. So that's our yellow, and green here, which is our variable capital. Okay. So they got this massive thing in common. Okay. So when you look at a big graph like we looked at a minute ago, so, so let's have this graph here. You look at this guy here, right? You can see that, if you squint your eyes, you can see, well, red and blue, they seem pretty much correlated to each other. They're quite close. Yeah, they're all just in around 400 here. They're all quite close to the 450 mark. One's a little bit below, a little bit above. Prices and values seem to be pretty well correlated when you look at them like that. Okay. But the thing is, they've got this common element. Yeah. So what the orange here represents and the surplus blue here represents, that's the additional amount of the price that is based upon the new work done by the employees. So we have our raw materials and their machinery or whatever. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. So sorry, that was just the missus coming in. So what we should be trying to analyze is the extra bit of price correlated with the extra bit of surplus value generated? Right? That's really what we're interested in, because we don't really care about this other stuff because they are common to both. So we're trying to see, is the extra bit of added price to the raw materials with our labor, is that correlated to the amount of extra labor done? That's really what we're interested in. Okay, well, let's draw the graph here then. So let's try and let me move this fella out of the way here, and we put these ones side by side. Okay. Okay, so we have these two graphs here. Sorry, here now. Why am I so bad at this? Give me 1 second. Okay. Oh, Lord. God damn it. Bad mouse. Okay, let's make these slightly bigger. Okay. Okay, here we go. So the one on the left here is with the prices with the cost prices, the costs included. Okay. And here is the same graph, just comparing the added bit of price to the added bit of labor. Now, we can see these here look pretty clumped around. They're quite correlated. The price and the value look pretty correlated. But when we just look at the additional bit, right? These are for the four sectors: the steel, the corn, the Rolex, and the clothes sector. We see that the actual surplus value sorry, they're the wrong colors. I wonder, can I change them colors? Colors should be the other way around. Oh, that could be confusing. Okay, I won't bother doing it now. It'll take me too long. But we can see here, these are quite closely. So these guys here are quite closely correlated. Okay. But when we just look at the new value added, we see that the thing has gone all over the place. Here we have the steel sector, the surplus is only 50 and their average profit is 150. Here their surplus is 250 and they're only getting 150. Here it's 100 and it's 150. So we see that the blue column and the red column are much further away from each other than they look over here. Simple as that. When you take away the costs, the variation is increased because they're not sitting on top of a similar lump of costs. So a good analogy for this would be like seeing like how similarly, what is the what percentage differences in people's height, right? And you have them all standing on 100-foot tall wall, and you say, oh well, actually they're all very closely correlated to people's height. Yeah, because they're all sitting all standing on a 100-foot wall, so they all look around in and around 105 feet plus or minus a few inches. So you'd say, wow, the height of these people is so correlated. People's height is within this small band as a percentage of their overall height. That's less than 1%. they're highly correlated, these people standing on the wall, right? And you say, well, no, they're just standing on a goddamn wall. Let's take the wall down, right? Let's just knock down the wall, get them to stand on the road, and let's measure them again and check their variance. Yeah, check the distribution. Let's see, is there much let's see, is there much differentiation in their heights? And you would say there's a load of differentiation in their heights. Yeah. So not a perfect analogy, but a good way to think about it. So like, we see here, like, what we should see. Here's two graphs here. This one is based on the figures, the mock sectors I put up here. When you equalize with profits, we should expect to see essentially not a correlation between values and prices for the additional bit, because some firms will have less surplus and some firms will have more, and they'll just be siphoning away from each other. But if we look over here, this was if the costs were correlated, we should see like a linear line. So if you should hope to see, like, as with more added work done to the product, you should see more added price. Okay, sectors with more labor added to the constant capital should have a higher price than those with less, and it should be, according to the research, it should be pretty linear. So you expect the line to go diagonal, but if there's no link here, like there shouldn't be, we should have it flat. Those graphs aren't great. The last ones. So the general gist here is that once you control for the difference between the you take out the costs, because the costs are common to the value and the price. Take them out and look at the new added piece of work done, right? And when you do that, like, if there is profit equalization going on, you would expect to see the correlation get obliterated. Yeah. Now, when Kleiman ran the stuff on the costs being extracted, the correlation completely disappeared. Okay, it basically became uncorrelated, negatively correlated sometimes. So the more labor you do, the less you get. So what we are seeing here is two major problems with that empirical stuff. One is problems of aggregation. But even when you take the aggregation into account, you look at a sector level, did the sector's added labor correlate to the sector's added price? Okay. And when you did that, the correlation disappeared. Okay. So again, to repeat, what would it take to get definitive empirical work to show that Marx was right, or Shaikh and these guys, Shaikh and Cockshott and these were right? You would need to have it at a firm by firm level of constant versus variable capital. Okay. And then you could check. Yeah. So if the stuff was disaggregated by firm, we could definitely check. And what should we check? We shouldn't just check whether they're correlated and they're all standing on the wall, they're all sharing this piece of stuff at cost. We should check the new work versus the added labor, the amount of added labor, and the amount of added price for each individual firm. And what Marx would say, and is undoubtedly going to be the case, is that, like, profit gets equalized. Not to say that all profit rates are the same, but the tendency is for profit to be equalized, that you may see a distribution. Okay. But you will not see a tight correlation between added price and added values, like a one-to-one relationship. You will actually probably see a lot of noise and not a clear signal, which is what Marx would say. Like, this idea that, that this stuff proves the labor theory of value is totally wrong. It's totally wrong. It really wouldn't. It would actually go against Marx's labor theory of value, and it would prove a kind of a Ricardian theory of value, where he had this idea of, labor time equals the value is the price is based on the labor time, and like the transformation problem was initially like a classical economics problem of Ricardo on that, where they couldn't explain why certain labor intensive industries didn't have high profitability versus labor not intensive industries. Okay, and that was what Marx's labor theory of value came along and solved. So to go back to a Ricardian one would be a real regression, and it shows, I think, bad statistical analysis. It's fair enough to get the stuff wrong, publish it, and get it wrong. Cool. Like, I've been wrong 100 times in my life. 100, no, maybe 6, but 1,000, 100,000 at least. But it's like, you can't defend these stats. It's just not a defensible position. Okay. So total value and would comparing total value and total price in the entire world make it more correlated? Well, total value, like one of Marx's things, is that total value does equal total price at a systemic level. Yeah, that's one of his deductions in volume 3. But it wouldn't teach you anything. Like, if you were to like, what we're trying to understand is like at a firm level, like, we're trying to understand like how value operates in the world. Yeah, we're trying to understand like what is the like how does value operate. We're not trying to prove like we're not all you're going to be able to prove, like from a theoretical point of view, if we had all the available information we wanted, would be that prices and values aren't correlated. We would just see that not highly correlated. Yeah, what I should say, there'll be some correlation, but not highly correlated. That there will be there'll be a lot of noise going on there. We can't hope to prove. We can't hope to prove that value equals price, because I think Shaikh and some of these people want a hope to prove that, but I think just not like, even theoretically, if you think through the logic, you're not going to show that. And from a Marxist point of view, it's not something that you would be expecting to see. If I would come up with this statistical analysis, say, and it was a shocking thing, like if I was a lecturer in economics or something like that, who was doing some of the stuff and maybe not a stats expert, I would go to the stats department. Like, literally, this is what goes on in academia. You meet them at a faculty meeting or something, or not even faculty, at a dinner, or you might know them for something, and ask them their opinion on the stats and see what you can, what could be causing these correlation problems. And I think, honestly, the two critiques that Kleiman has in the Reclaiming Capital they're, honest to God, they're devastating statistical critiques. And I've worked in the stats industry. There's no getting around them. There's just no getting around them. Let's see. So in a firm, it moves to value equaling price over the long run. No. So, for example, like you have a heavy labor intensive industry, like picking in California, all the Mexican workers that come in and they work picking, the fruit and veg for the entire goddamn country. Yeah. Like those farmers, they're not making because they're highly work intensive stuff, industries, they're not making like 70% profit, right? Um, they're not making 70% profit. They're just going to be making that close to an average rate of profit for a firm, for a typical firm in the country, if they're run right. That's the reality. Like they're going to be making like 10-12% profit or whatever the average is in America right now. Yeah. Because when they go to sell their stuff in the market, they go to sell their lettuce. Say they pick, 10,000 heads of lettuce and they go to the market. They're not going to get the value for the lettuce might be worth 10,000 heads might be worth $20,000, right? But when they go to the market, they might only get $12,000, because that would equate to making an average rate of profit in the marketplace. And if they went to try and say sell them for 20,000, like say for $2 each, sell them for 20,000, like the market just won't accept it. Yeah. And if they were doing that for a while and getting away with it, what would happen? Well, then we'd have some people saying, wow, lettuce is highly profitable. Let's get into the lettuce market. And they get loads of workers in. And the next thing, there's an oversupply. And what happens? The price goes down. It will eventually kind of sort itself out over a few years, and it'll reach a thing that's closer to the average. Now, people know from maybe some of the earlier episodes I did, I was like big into permaculture, and I think it's really good. It's like a kind of a systemic kind of thinking for, like, maybe dialectical thinking for gardening or farming, but it's it's highly insufficient. Like, and the reason I say that is because, like, it's very, very it's a middle class operation. It's a back to the farm middle class operation, and how in reality it's getting implemented now within capitalism, right? So you see them and they say, oh yeah, you can have a 3-acre small holding and you can do intensive regenerative, certain type of market gardening. Yeah. And you can go for high income, high income, like organic salads, and you can sell them, and they're actually really profitable. But like, it only exists on this kind of because there's not it's not heavily competitive. It exists on like the surplus of like rich PMC, bourgeois people who are spending the money on this expensive produce. But typically they'll be playing, oh yeah, we do rare hog breeds, and we feed them on the wild apples that we have here, and we're able to get like $700 a boar versus like $200 for the average, right? But it's like, it's not a systemic answer to anything. Yeah. Much like, like if permaculture came in, everybody was doing it, these prices would get hammered down. Okay. Right. Any questions? That was a long rattle. I just think that the like, when you think about like the idea of like people standing on 100-foot wall, yeah, and seeing if their heights are correlated, that's what's going on in Anwar Sheikh. They're looking at like 100-foot wall. They're looking at this one here, yeah. They're looking at this one here, yeah. They're all sitting on 100-foot wall going across here. And you're looking at the entire height of price and the entire height of value, and you're saying, oh yeah, they're pretty common, they're pretty similar. But when you take the wall off, it looks like this. Let me see if I can change the scale on this to make it chart axis, legend, position auto, legend. I can't get it. It's doing its own thing here. But like in reality, like, you know, you need to take everybody off the wall and look at them then and see if they're correlated, because that's what's going on. Yeah, so two very fundamental problems there that you know really destroy the work. Unfortunately, you know, unfortunately, there's no getting around it. It just destroys it. So what we, you know, now Cockshott has an additional third argument to try and defend this stuff, which I'm not going to do today. I might do it the next live stream, but it's an incredibly bad argument. It sounds like it's good at the start, but he's having it both ways, and I'll do that the next one. Right, I'm talked out on this stuff here. Anybody got anything else here we can talk about after doing some hardcore stats graph? The plan is, of course, I keep saying it, is to put these into videos, like and make them really accessible. I think, like, when you think you have that idea of people standing on a 100-foot wall and saying, are their heights correlated? You know, it's an obvious flaw. It's a very, very simple and obvious flaw. I'll tell you what I've been watching, actually. I don't know if anybody's been watching there's a series version of Brave New World. Has anybody been watching this? It's actually quite good. It's the first episode is kind of rubbish. I've watched about 6 or 7 episodes, thanks to the world of torrents. But I think it's really quite interesting. You know, I read Brave New World like about 15 years ago, and I cannot remember one thing about it. I was thinking like the plot here. I said, "Oh," I was saying to my missus, "I think they've changed up this plot a lot." I was saying, like, I don't remember any of this stuff in it. And I looked on the Wikipedia for the novel Brave New World, the plot, and it was like, yeah, it was just following for the first few seasons, the first few episodes anyway, it was following with dead on. But it's very interesting, like the Brave New World system, what they've set up. It's like, you know, it's obviously like a different revolutionary social a different social, you know, structure or social organization. And but it's quite interesting because, like, they're placing it in opposition to you know, I think, you know, Brave New World was obviously in some kind of an opposition to, as far as I, you know, like to the Soviet bloc or whatever. But in the show, it seems to be placing it not in opposition to, like, the ecological crisis of capitalism or whatever. And what's funny about it is that, like, where the author has leveled, like, the revolutionary society is what they didn't see the problem in class society, in capitalist class society. That's not where they located the nexus of the problems. In the new society, how they went to try and get over these was not to destroy the class society, which they explicitly still have. They have different grades of people based on their genes and all that. But what they have tried to destroy is the family, which is quite interesting. Like, as in, like, they saw the family as the crisis producing dynamic. So they got rid of, you know, like, people having parents. They had, you know, babies born in test tubes or whatever, and people are conditioned from birth to know their place, and they're all drugged up with particular drugs and everything. So it's just quite interesting. I would like to read, because I read the Brave New World before I was a Marxist. So I would like, I at the time I didn't like it. I don't think I liked the writing style. Like, I didn't think he was a particularly good writer. So seeing how like um the critique, like how it's this, the critique is like the destruction of the family. It seems like an kind of an interesting uh novel maybe to have been written back in the 50s, I think, or 60s when it was written, about, I think it was early 50s, about uh, describing the Soviet bloc as a way to destroy the family. It's like, it's kind of like they wanted to talk about, from the manifesto, or where they talk about destroying the, like, you want to have living communally and destroying the family. And it's like the critique that how it was written in the time was like putting forward the Soviet bloc as if they had destroyed the family, and when it would seem like very far from actually what the Soviet experiment did. You can make, they destroyed certain classes. They invented new classes. They still had a class society. They had basically had workers, didn't they? And a bureaucratic class. But it's not as if, like, in the Soviet bloc the family was destroyed. You know, not at all. And it wasn't as if, you know the Soviet bloc, they lived communally. You know, they had more maybe social stuff, but they still lived in the family. It lived in one, an apartment or a house somewhere. So it seems like a weird take to have been written in the 50s, like, of all the things that you could kind of critique the Soviet bloc for, you wouldn't have thought displaying them as a like a family destroying uh, system. You wouldn't have thought that was uh, a very good um, analogy to make. So I don't know too much about Aldous Huxley. I wonder from the left or the right did he come. So, but I would really recommend it. There's a guy acting in there. He's an English guy who acts like he acts the Bernard character, and he's an excellent actor. And I was like, oh, I must look this guy up online. And it turns out he went to fucking Eton, so he's a posh boy. But that put a stick in my craw. But there's like all of these all these British actors now, they're like an incredible amount of these famous Hollywood types are all out of Eton. Like, Eton is not a big school. They have like a few hundred people every year, and they have fucking half of Hollywood, like, literally. Um, what was I going to say? And interestingly enough, he is the great, 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 I think, great grandson of Charles Dickens. So there you go. Yeah, part of the Illuminati. Um, Christopher, enjoyed your episode with Anne McShane. Looked her up. Seems she was really against Brexit. I didn't know Anne's stance on that yet, to be honest with you. Like, Anne is an interesting. She's very sound. I met her at the Communist University last year, and she was really, really nice. Yeah, I like Anne a lot, and her work there is really interesting on that stuff. I can't, I don't know what to take. I know that the I think the CPGP's line was that, like, I think their political line on it was like, there isn't like a positive or a negative. It's like one of these things on, like, personally, and I look at, say, the protest in China, or say like or an uprising like the Maidan in Ukraine. It's like there's no good side to take. There's not really a good analysis. You can make your analysis. Oh, it's NATO doing this and Russia reacting to that, and some of the people in the middle of it might be acting in good faith, and many others not. But it's like there's not like there isn't like a good communist line there. It's like having a communist line on, who's our favorite, like, do we like Google or Apple? You know, there's not a communist line on it, and I think that's probably fairly correct. I just don't think there is much to be gained out of being anti or pro Brexit as a communist. Um, I think that, like, you know, you can critique certain elements of it, blah 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 blah, and talk about it politically, but I don't think for I think communists, we got to like start thinking about our own organization, to be honest, and not these divisive divide and conquer strategies of uh, global capital accumulation and control. Um, right, I'm getting hoarse as hell here. If anybody's got anything else, if anybody's anything else, I'll chat about. But I think I'll probably go offline. I know there's only 5 of us here. These Patreon live streams, you know, and as well, I can't do them late enough for the American people to come on board easily, because at the weekend we're all doing recording and stuff on different days, so it's very difficult for me to do them. I can't possibly stay up late enough. I couldn't do them at 10 o'clock at night. I think my brain would totally self destroy. Yeah, so I think I'll call it a day, and I'll probably do another one next week. I might try and do the final Cockshott kind of return argument on the empirical stuff. So there is one complex argument which it'll take me a while to put some thoughts together on it, but yeah, until then, right. So thanks very much, everybody, and I'll chat to you soon.